I've been utterly tortured by trying to learn certain tricks, days and days, weeks, sometimes years. That disappointment that you feel when you leave after not doing it, there are definitely times when it means everything. It's like, how could I have not done that? How could that not have worked? And that is hard. But like he said, better than not doing it.
Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Tom Brady, and Babe Ruth, the unquestioned GOATs, or greatest of all time of their respective sports. One more name to be added to that list, today's guest, Tony Hawk. Never before has a single athlete become so intertwined with the sport they dominated, but in the case of Tony, his enormously high profile is obvious. Not only did he become the winningest skater of all time in various competitions and tournaments, but he nearly invented the sport. From his childhood days gliding through empty swimming pools in Southern California, to inventing a countless number of new tricks like the 900, to gracing the cover of one of the best-selling video games in history. Tony Hawk's pro skater. But his success on the board has come at an extreme cost. Not only was Tony eager to discuss the broken femur he sustained while riding last year, in his 50s no less, we also discussed lighter encounters with medicine, like him making enemies with his local urgent care physician as a teenager. And just like in the game, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, we've also unlocked Jason Ellis, pro skater, MMA fighter, and now co-host of Tony's new podcast, Hawk vs. Wolf. Together, these two skate veterans invited me to their new podcast studio in New York City and opened up about the harsh reality of life as professional skaters, especially when it comes to damaging their bodies over and over and over. Okay, so we're obviously at my home base, and I don't mean the studio.
We apologize for
I'm not sorry
trying
about
to
it.
take over your
apologize. This is amazing. I get to take over your studio, but
you're
technically,
welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to your show.
That's actually a good way to do it. Yeah. Thank you for welcoming me to the show.
We're here.
Yeah.
You.
This is the Checkup Podcast, and you guys are here for the checkup.
Okay.
So I know my patient to my right has a complaint of a sore throat, losing the voice.
I tend to lose my voice quite a bit, and I've just always written it off to allergies, but I do remember my mom, through all my years, constantly clearing her throat, and I realized at some point, like, oh, that's me.
And your hack is tea?
For podcasts, yes.
Okay, why podcasts?
Tea.
Not in real life?
Because I'm not generally talking this much.
True.
Consistently. I mean,
you're letting them move.
In full disclosure, we're doing 4 of these today.
Ooh.
So I know I'm going to be struggling at some point, and so this is what's helping that temporarily.
And what's the tea of choice?
This one is just peppermint with a lot of honey.
Peppermint's the wrong choice.
It is?
Yeah.
Shit.
You don't know what you're doing, dude.
Why didn't I consult you before I...
Yeah, so the peppermint is actually irritating to anything that's inflamed.
And you keep making it worse over and over again through 4 shows. Somebody get this guy chamomile.
That's why we're here.
ASAP.
Yes,
What is
I'm right, aren't I?
Chamomile, lavender.
It's hard not to bring up that I know as much as the doctor. I know it just started, but chamomile.
No, but like some of the foods that we say for people who have acid reflux to not eat or to avoid are acidic foods, alcohol, caffeinated products, but then peppermint.
Okay.
Specifically peppermint.
My issue, caffeinated product, I just feel like I'm so indebted to caffeine at this point in my life. How would I pull that back?
Well, do you know why caffeine is a problem for those who are having acid issues?
No.
It's because your body secretes more acid when you consume caffeine. So it's a secretion product of drinking caffeine. Now, I'm not saying...
if I quit caffeine, I would get headaches for sure.
Well, that would be a short-term issue. That would go away really quickly. In fact, like, you know, some people build up a tolerance to caffeine so that even when they drink it, they don't get a high from it. If you take like 2 days off from caffeine, on the 3rd day, you'll get a kick from it. So you lose that tolerance really quickly when it comes to caffeine.
All right, I'll try.
And surprisingly, caffeine's the #1 studied sports performance enhancing drug. The #1. And backed by science that it actually works.
USADA approved that though.
They did.
Yeah.
But I think there's limits.
But yeah, I try to pull back.
Yeah, I think there's limits.
No way.
Yeah,
you can't have too much caffeine.
Yeah,
in your
absolutely.
system?
When I'm like, if I'm going to the ramp, I'll make sure that I tone it down because I get too hyped.
Oh,
and
wow.
I start to get ahead of myself and I make mistakes. Like I've definitely experienced that enough times in my life where I was hyped up on coffee or soda or whatever.
Yeah.
and then I can't skate.
Oh, wow.
Do your kids drink caffeinated products?
Yes, but not
Not like you.
not like me.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring it up is there was some controversy with Logan Paul's and KSI's Prime energy drink recently, where the FDA apparently is taking a look at them because they have 200 milligrams of caffeine in their energy drink. And it says on the can, don't drink if you're under 18. But who's their audience?
Right.
Yeah.
Those under 18. And 200 milligrams is 6 times the amount of caffeine that's in a Coke.
Yeah.
It's like 6 cans of Coke or 2 Red Bulls.
Wow.
So kids are getting, and then the parents are also at fault here because they're not checking. But then also, then the kids drink it, they get all hyper,
It's like this
and then parents
generation's-
yell at them.
It's this generation's Jolt.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was Jolt? I assume it's a caffeinated product.
Jolt was like a soda, but had
A ton
I don't
of
know,
caffeine.
double or triple the caffeine.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
But it-
before Red Bull, right?
Before, yeah. It was like late '80s, early '90s, maybe.
If it's 200 how many, what'd you say?
200 milligrams, yeah.
200
per can.
milligrams. Can that cause like a heart problem with a kid?
Oh yeah, for sure. It can create palpitations.
How-
You know that the for an adult, the recommended max intake of caffeine is 400 milligrams. So just
day.
2, yeah, the 2 you're there. And like as a society, we're already over caffeinated and we
Yeah.
don't respect sleep. So like, oh man. And then people are having this at night to game or to get a workout in.
Yeah.
And then they have a pre-workout with it. Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that stuff is more like I enjoy the feeling, but like to wake up and do stuff, like I just use the fear.
Yeah,
The fear of failure always energizes me.
Okay.
Yeah.
but waking up and not having coffee, I mean, I guess I could do decaf, but that would be really hard for me.
And even decaf has a little bit of caffeine in it. Some people are, just how non-alcoholic beer has a little bit of alcohol in it.
All right. Doesn't tea have a lot of caffeine in it?
I wouldn't say a lot, but
More than
black
coffee?
tea. No, not more than coffee.
Oh.
Less than coffee.
Okay.
Black tea probably has the most, and then green tea second. But then the other ones like the chamomiles, lavenders, those are non-caffeinated.
Right.
The herbal teas are not. That's why those would be good choices
Okay.
for your throat, and
Okay.
paired with honey. Honey is actually a great medication for sore throat and cough. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends honey for kids over the age of 2 for nighttime cough. It actually works as good as the over-the-counter cough suppressants.
A little better for you, right?
Yeah. So pretty
Okay.
wild.
Bees made it, so you know it's good.
Okay.
All right, so now we cured
All right. Thank you.
your throat situation.
Am I done?
Yeah, I think I tore
didn't
my
pay the
meniscus and I'm blood.
Oh, okay. At
Yeah.
the same time.
Wait.
Yeah.
What?
It happens. I'm a thrill seeker.
I like how you just combine the two as if it's just.
He
one.
said,
these
"What's
are-
wrong?"
But these are different
No,
body
I get it, but it did sound like it just rolled off like it was one sentence.
It's what's happening right now.
Okay.
Right now,
Yeah,
actively bleeding.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And-
I had a Red Bull the other day, and it made my stomach hurt, and then a little bit of blood, and then a little bit more today. Not as bad as yesterday, but wasn't good. But I figured hemorrhoids, it happens. That's internal hemorrhoids, right?
Well, it could be external too, but what I would recommend is that you get that checked out.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're of the
Yeah, maybe.
age where you're at a risk for more serious conditions that could potentially cause bleeding,
Like what?
like colon cancer.
I already got checked the other day for that.
The other day.
Yeah.
What's the other day?
Like 6 months, a year ago.
But when did the bleeding start?
I've been bleeding from the butt for years.
Did you know this about your friend?
No.
I
left that
knew
one
that
out.
he was at risk of that with his
It's not from
activities.
getting.
but,
I didn't. It might be. From
It's not a
getting-
fissure.
yeah.
Nah, I've
When
had
you say
those too.
But
I've
but
had
are
those
you
too,
saying
but
it's
they
a-
hurt. What?
well, yeah, they hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And external hemorrhoids hurt. Internal,
I got
generally
those
don't.
too.
Yeah.
My
So how
butt
do you
is
know
a
which is the
travesty.
issue right now?
Because my outside ones don't hurt, and there's a little bit of blood in my stool. Probably should have said it that way the first time, but it just happens from time to time. I feel like I'm on the road. I'm getting worn out. I don't sleep as much, and my stomach's upset from something I ate when I first got here because
Fair.
I could.
You don't
tell.
respect sleep.
Yeah, I want to respect it. I'm just not really like getting the time to do that, you know?
That's fair.
Like I did comedy last night, and when I got to the hotel, I went to bed, but then I got up early to come here, and that's like tough. You know, that happens.
I find it ironic that the lower end of your GI is upset and the upper end of his GI is upset. You guys are like a true team.
Right. Yeah, that happens.
We complement each other.
All right. Clearly your guys' bodies are struggling now.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, in your years being professional skaters, what has been the injury that sticks out? Maybe not even pain-wise, but in terms of recovery, stress, mental anguish.
Well, I broke my femur last year. That was definitely the longest road to recovery and the most sideways, literally sideways, because I had a non-union fracture because I got back on my skateboard too soon, and then I had to have it reset, realigned about 8 months later, and that was in November. Now I've been good to go, but I will say that I did have a concussion that lasted. The effects of it lasted for a couple weeks, and that was the first time where I truly felt like, oh, this is a problem. And it was way before any studies or what. It was all, back then it was like, oh, you got a concussion. Well, wake him up every 2 hours. Wow. That was the protocol. And
those were the days.
Yeah, I had one where I was actually editing a video, I remember, and I remember looking at the screen like, I don't even know how to do this. Like, this makes no sense.
So complete disconnect.
Not disconnect. It was just more like confusion.
Yeah.
It was more that I knew I was foggy. I mean, I knew where I was and what I was doing, but I was foggy enough where I was like, I can't function properly to do this. And
Like a cognitive impairment.
I had never had one that lingered.
Do you still feel the effects of it right now?
No.
Maybe not that specific concussion, but in general.
No.
So you feel sharp, memory's good, headaches, nothing like that, visual changes?
No.
Wow, okay. So you don't have a real worry of CTE?
Well, of course it's always, but I definitely compartmentalize that worry and set it aside because I love what I do so much. And I mean, I'm very aware of the risks now, obviously with studies and whatnot. And also I'm not doing the kind of tricks that are putting me or that are making me more prone to more concussions.
Sure.
I mean, anything can happen. I get it. But he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
But so knowing what you know now with this new research of head injuries, do you still take up skateboarding if you were to start today?
If I were to start today, and feel the...
I mean, you're young. Like making you...
Yeah.
What age did you start?
Yes. Yeah.
10.
10.
Early teens? Yeah. 10? So you're
Yeah.
10 right now.
Oh, yeah.
But you know the
No
research.
question.
You're still starting.
Sure, but I mean, when you're 10 and people are telling you about lifelong issues, you're not listening
You're not
to
taking
that.
it seriously.
Are you?
Yeah, I remember my parents saying when I got my first
parents might say
tattoo,
it.
I was going to regret it. And they were wrong,
So you don't regret it?
Not at all. The first one was Metallica, and they were like, you're going to regret that. I was like, those guys are awesome. That's like my
And they
favorite.
still are.
I still love them.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but I'm saying, you're saying as a 10-year-old, you wouldn't know about the research or you wouldn't care about the ramifications. But you're making the decision for yourself as a 10-year-old.
Let's put it this way. As a 10-year-old, if there were these studies and there was this information and my parents still allowed me to do it, which they would have because they were just happy to get me out of the house and keep me busy, I would probably be more scared in that moment of my first concussion. Whereas my first concussion was just confusing. And I woke up somewhere else.
Isn't part of your skill set and success in skateboarding your fearlessness?
I suppose, but it's all calculated risk. Like I never went at something thinking, I hope this works out.
I did.
He did, for sure.
Yeah?
But I was always very much like, I have all the pieces to this puzzle. I just have to put them all together and commit to it. So I was never one to just fly in the face of risk or not give any concern for consequence. But I knew that it could happen.
And you had your father by your side.
Yeah. But he was my dad was older when I was born. He was a child of the Depression. It was a whole different set of rules and parenting back then.
Was it rub some dirt in it mentality?
I mean, it wasn't like toughen up, but it was more like I mean, I remember seeing my dad get like crazy he did a lot of woodwork and did crazy gashes, just like just annoyed by it. And that was the first thing, was like, oh, that's what happens when you get hurt. It's just annoying.
Sure.
And so when it happened to me, it was like, oh yeah, this is annoying. But there were concerns because I had a string of injuries early on. I was like 11, because the pads were terrible too.
Yeah.
So you had pads were mandatory in the skate parks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who checked that?
You had to go through a whole. I mean, there were private facilities, so you had to pay to get in.
Got it.
They're checking to make sure you're wearing all this stuff. That was in my day. So for me, pads were part of life, and you had to do it. But they were terrible. So the first concussion I had, like the padding in my helmet was so soft and thin that the helmet actually cut
through. Oh my God.
Yeah, it cut my brow. In addition to the concussion.
Jesus.
So it was just a disaster. And that really didn't improve until a few years later.
Was it the same? Like when I played soccer, you had to wear shin guards in high school. But then the guys that wanted to be quick wore these tiny shin guards.
Oh, wow.
Did they do the same?
You couldn't really get away with that. I mean, the
You
type
get
of
ratted
skating,
out. There's people watching you skate.
But it wasn't even
Yeah.
that. It was more like the kind of skating we were doing. It was what I was doing was empty swimming pools, right? It was Dogtown and Z-Boys era.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out how to get airborne. You can't survive that without
Sure.
pads, really.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know how to slide on your knees, you're not really going to be able to learn all these tricks, or
survive.
or weather a hit to the head.
But you had different feelings about wrist protectors and wrist guards.
Well, at some point, I mean, I wore them when I was a kid because my dad.
Oh, you did?
My dad saw me get hurt, and he's like, "Okay, you got to." He made me get rid of that helmet. That
I got
hurt
it.
in.
Like a motocross helmet would be way safer to skate in, but if you skated with a motocross helmet,
That would be
you would
hard.
slam twice as much because you can't see where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a wrist guard is starting to get into that argument where it's going to cause me to fall off because of the way my hand works.
Missing those grabs. Yeah.
So it's like,
Okay.
you know, I don't want to hurt my wrist, but I also want to grab my board. And if my hand slips and then I eat shit because my hand slipped, then maybe it would have been okay to hurt your wrist.
But I remember the liberation of getting rid of wrist guards, where it was like, oh, yeah, I can't, and I had to overcome the idea that, well, you might break your wrist, and it was
Yeah.
like it's worth it to be able to grab every single part of my board and not feel this plastic that's just getting in the way.
And you had a strategy when you fell.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
What's that like? What's
Get to
the
your
ideal
knees.
strategy?
Get to your knees.
So slide on the knees
Slide on
as
the
quick
knees,
as
yeah.
possible.
It's
Okay.
bailing. There's bailing and then there's slamming.
Yeah, bailing is premeditated.
Yeah.
You take off, something goes wrong, kick your board away.
Got it.
Take a step for impact, and then go to your knees.
Yeah.
Slamming is when you think everything's cool, and then you're on the ground.
Right. You
And
don't
that-
know what's going to happen.
Those are the KOs.
So basically, when you're bailing, you're doing like a form of parkour where you're like trying to
You have
absorb
to-
the impact.
No.
Why,
it's
is
not
that a
like
thing?
parkour. It's like
but
skateboarding.
when they're jumping from high
Yes.
heights,
Yeah,
the
and they're
absorption of the
doing
impact.
safety
Yeah.
walls and stuff. Yeah, but ours are more just to our knees.
Sure.
There's
Are
a
you
f-
not a parkour fan? You seem offended. at
No.
that. Why?
I don't want to get into it. Each to their own, I guess.
Okay, fair. But tell me about your worst injury then.
I don't.
First of all,
I mean,
was
I
it
had a-
skateboarding or was it fighting?
Oh, skateboarding easily.
Easily. Wow.
Fighting is like concussions and I don't know. Like, I guess
Stitches.
I've broken my hand, but not. It's just not like there's levels too. Like I'm a terrible fighter. Like I was a high level skateboarder, and the better I got, the more dangerous I was. And when I was, top 10, top 5, the higher I got, the more I got hurt.
Fair.
Because the level was to be in a contest. I was trying to do stuff that I could barely do, and if it's in your contest ride. If it wasn't
you're
right,
gonna
I
make it.
still try to make it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So there was just a
So
time
would there be things that you would try in a competition that you know you already failed in practice?
Absolutely.
Or that you've never maybe made,
Even
or
attempt.
you've only made a couple times, but that's the game time,
I had a theory
and
for
you commit to it. I mean, but plenty of tricks have only been done in competition because that's when you have the most incentive.
the crowd, the pressure,
And
it
also
helps.
Adrenaline.
Yeah.
And you are willing to risk that big injury because that is the moment where it's going to matter.
Payoff, yeah.
Yeah, so it was very easy. It was too easy.
Were you making that calculation on your own, or do you have a team around you when you do it?
No, just me.
I don't know. This is new to me. You don't have friends
We had an
around you?
army of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And they'd
they're
be
not.
like, you got it.
Yeah, that
Was like,
a
you had
team.
to, if he's almost making something and I go, dude, no. Nobody's ever said that. Like, the
Really?
worst I'll say is,
Oh yeah, we're gonna encourage each other.
Yeah,
to,
like,
to
to
the
the
bitter
death,
end.
yeah.
if we're putting it down, like the wheels touch and we're kind of off balance,
Like, oh, you got it.
everybody says you got it.
Yeah.
I've done stuff where I'm like, hey, am I close? And I brought Danny, a friend of mine was like, dude, you got that. And then I made it. And when I got up on the deck, he was like, dude, I thought you had no chance.
Yeah.
That was crazy. But I didn't think that was weird. I was
As a
like,
human,
There
this
have been a
feels-
few times, I will say, a few times, especially in recent memory, where I have discouraged someone, where I'm like, probably not that.
Right, because they were nowhere near it.
Yeah, and they were about to throw it down, where it was just
Right.
like, I don't think you have the pieces to that.
I think that's like an amateur. There's people that are like, I'm going to drop in, and if you've seen them skate, you know they're not going to make it. They're
Right.
going to destroy themselves.
That has
then
happened
you
a few
say,
times.
dude,
Sure.
don't do it.
Okay.
But if you're a
Pro, and you're at a
and
competition.
you're like putting it down, and I'm like, it's a 50-50.
Yeah, oh yeah, you got that.
If
yeah.
it's a 50, because we also know that it's the mental. Like sometimes you can do stuff where you can't do it, but you just know you've got it and you make it.
Wow.
Like
I have a funny story. I tried to get. I did finally get to it, but the trick that I broke my leg on was a McTwist. It's something that it is inherently dangerous, but I've done it thousands of times through my career since 1984, and I didn't have enough speed. I tried to adjust for that. I got tangled. I broke my leg. He was there, but
That's gross.
You're the bad luck charm.
What?
That's what he just did. He pointed at you. He said you were there.
I was there. I'm always there.
yeah, he was,
He
and he
also-
was there for the one I made.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, fair.
For thousands that I made, but
Asshole.
also but coming back to that trick
Yeah.
was something that I was destined to do. I mean, there was like I almost hate that it meant that much to me, but I had to get back to it. I had to conquer it. And when I started really trying it, I was so fixated on getting the grab. I have this limitation now of getting my board, getting a hold of it in one position, which is the position I need for this trick because of whatever has happened to my body. And I still have that, and I'm trying to get through it. But so I'm so fixated on this grab that I'm not even considering all the other elements that I have to figure out, which is the speed of the spin, how much I pull out from the wall. And I started getting a grab, and I started thinking I'm getting close. And I asked Reese, who is 10 years old, who is a maestro skater, amazing. Like
Okay.
she's a phenom, and she does 540s. She does McTwists.
Not the same, but yeah.
Not the same, but she's
Different
like, oh, are you
technique.
gonna try to do? I was like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna try. She goes, I think you need to spin faster.
Yeah.
And I didn't consider that, and I was like, holy shit! Like Reese is telling me to spin faster. I better spin faster.
Yeah. And she was right.
She was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I finally made it.
It's a very supportive environment
Oh, yeah.
that you guys are describing. It almost doesn't feel competitive. Because I feel like
No,
in
there's
other
a lot
sports,
of camaraderie. Yeah, no, for sure. I think skating is very unique in that sense that people compete, but it's art against art, and everyone wants to see each other succeed in whatever they're trying to do. And so if you go to a skate park right now, there are children and grown-ass men, and they're all skating together, and they're all encouraging. And if someone is trying something that they've never done before, everyone rallies around that.
wow.
Because we know what it feels like to make it, and we want you to feel that too. Like if you make it, his 5 that he did at the demo in Utah, I almost cried
Wow.
because I was
That
so
was
happy.
the first one I did. So I did one before in private.
Yes.
I did a McTwist, finally got it back.
I didn't
And then
know that.
I did one at this exhibition in Utah a few weeks ago. But the funny thing about that was that I thought because I had finally made one that I could just throw it into a run and it would be a surprise. It would be like, oh, he did a McTwist. Oh, and then on to the next one. And it became my battle very publicly, which I didn't want, but that became the drama. And I made it, but it was.
But
it was
also,
hard.
when he started trying it, I know that his leg's not the same, and I know that grab's not the same. And when he started trying it, I could tell that his leg is not the same, and it's a different 540. He has to do it higher, and it's more potentially dangerous.
I have to do it higher because I spin slower.
Yeah, because he
Got it.
can't
You
ball
need more
up as
time,
much.
yeah.
He's a little more open now. And I didn't know that he'd already made one. So I was like, dude. And seeing the leg break and seeing him try to heal it over a year and then the bone moving away from his leg and going, dude, have you been skating with me for like 6 months with a bone not attached to your leg? Because there was
And the
times
femur, it's not like a little bone.
I was there in the sad parts. Like I was there when he would go there and like try to skate and he couldn't skate. And then he'd go behind the ramp and I'd see him sitting there by himself looking at his shoes. And I'm like, I ain't going over there. Like I know, he's going to sort it out by himself. And then he'd come back up and he's dark, like we know, like I'm not going to be like, hey man, cheer up. You'll get like, when anyone's dark, you kind of let him sort it out.
Yeah.
But I saw that for a year. Like there was times where he'd fall off and he couldn't get up off the ground to walk to the stairs. And I'm like, I'm not going to say anything, but God, dude, like what are we doing to each other?
Yeah.
And then to see him make it after having a second surgery, it was just like, people don't, when you're older and you skate and it's like if you hit your head again, and we've hit our head so many times, and we also, like he said, we know hitting your head is not healthy, and we've got kids and people that we care about that we would be sad if we don't know who they are anymore.
Sure.
So it's like when I was younger, I didn't care, I didn't know. We were just maniacs, and we were like, you got it. Now it's like, this could be our last ride. Like every time I go now, when you hit, there's a different feeling the next day where you're like, man, maybe I need to get an MRI. Like I think that like 4 or 5 times a year because my body has had so many injuries. When I hit things now, my knee's like, dude, do you know how many ligaments are left in here? Like, stop hitting me. And you know it. You know you're burning it. But that's the camaraderie is like, I love this so much that I'm willing to hobble for the rest of my life to still do this.
That sums it up. Yeah, I'm willing to
Do you
hobble.
think part of that camaraderie comes from the fact that you guys were actively building up the sport as well? And you wanted the sport to succeed?
I think it's what drove me to the sport in the first place.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I felt like an outcast as a kid. I was like a skinny, nerdy kid. I was okay at basketball, baseball, but not excelling. And when I found skating, I just found this band of misfits that were all passionate about this thing. And yes, they were creating it from the ground up, but it wasn't even that aspect of it. It was just more like, oh, I can fit in here, even though no one fits in.
Yeah.
So in 2016, when it became an Olympic sport, how did you guys feel about that?
Good.
Yeah, good.
It was a positive thing.
It's kind of like, I never imagined that as a kid, nor did we even really aspire to that.
Right.
And then as you see it grow and you see it permeate mainstream culture and you see how inclusive it is and how it overcomes so many boundaries, socioeconomic, racial, age, gender. And it was like, yeah, this belongs in the Olympics more than many Olympic sports.
Sure.
So why haven't they figured that out? But it wasn't like that's our crowning achievement.
Yeah.
Got it.
It was more like, that's cool.
There's some hardcore out there that were like, we don't need to be in that, and I think that was more of an attitude of we've been neglected our whole careers, so why now? Oh, now you can make money out of it, so you want to use it. But in the grand scheme, when you get older, it's like, is this going to build more people to skate?
Yeah.
And more skate parks.
Yeah.
True.
So like, because it saved me, and it saved all of it. All of us that skate have a story where skateboarding saved us. So if you build more skate parks around the whole world, and youth today with phones and all that stuff, if they decide to do that, they're better off. The world is better off if everyone skates.
There's a thriving skate scene in Uganda. Like that's the state of things.
Well,
now.
because the barrier to entry is much lower than like a sport where you need a ton of equipment, football pads, helmets, all these things.
Sure, but also just the access to it. I mean, when we were younger, there were very, very few skate parks.
Yeah.
I mean, I got lucky that I grew up near one of the last ones in the U.S. There were maybe 3 at the time.
Wow.
So that's a big element to it. I know there's obviously a whole street skating element and whatnot, but when you're talking about places like Uganda and Ethiopia, street skating is not that accessible. So they have created these facilities, and people just
Thrive.
thrive and really connect to it and congregate around it. So I think it's amazing. But I've said it before, like when this was all leading up to being included in the Olympics, I felt like they need our cool factor more than we need their validation.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? We already have all these big events.
Sure.
There already are successful professional skateboarders. Skateboarding is already here to stay. So to have it in the Olympics is like, sure, but that's not necessary.
Yeah.
It helps for the global growth for sure. But without a doubt, the Olympics and the coverage, they need that youthful cool factor in their summer games like they got with snowboarding in the winter games.
Yeah. So they're taking advantage, but they're also giving something back.
We're okay with it.
It's a give or take.
I don't have the answers. I just know
That's
that
fair.
that's what I see from an outside perspective.
It gives people a chance to compete for medals for their country.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a good representation. You mentioned that skating saved you. What was the moment that you were thinking when you said that?
I mean, I didn't have the greatest childhood, and I've, like same with Tony, I just felt like a misfit, you know. And then skateboarding was something that was mine, and nobody could take it from me. And I didn't need a coach, or I didn't need anything. I just needed my skateboard and my imagination. And I found people there that had that in common and accepted me for my passion of skateboarding. Like once you pay your dues, you're kind of in. And then that was it. It was something about you can be by yourself for hours. And I don't think it happens to everybody. Like it could be bikes, could be rollerblading. I don't care what it is. But it bit me. You know, same with fighting. Like you're not a fighter. You got into it. And all of a sudden you were like, what you know what I mean? Like, what's up today, coach? Like, and then you do something good and you think about it all day afterwards. You're like, can't believe I learned that. Skateboarding was the first thing that ever did that to me, where I didn't think about my life or anything that had happened to me that didn't make me feel good about me. It was all I thought about was skating. So it was like in a constant meditation. That's how I can.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of the concept of flow?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what basically you're describing,
Yeah.
where you're constantly trying to achieve something that is achievable,
Yep.
that is going to give you long-lasting passion, that you can practice, that you can be surrounded by
Passion.
those who love you, and that's what it is.
That's what it is,
But
passion.
it forces you to be present in the moment,
Yep.
which we're very good at not being in the moment.
Yeah.
Whether we're worried about the future with anxiety or
Right.
upset about something that happened in the past.
It's a very lucky tool to get when you're young and nobody's offering any of those tools. Because that one to me was life-saving. Like, and not only did it, I became passionate, but I got better at it, and that gave me confidence to go out in the world and succeed. Because I was like, you were terrible. And then, you know, many years later of all that work that I didn't see as work because I was just enthralled with doing it, I became like an athlete. I was doing things where I was like, okay, you don't have to be a skateboarder. That takes athleticism. And I wasn't an athlete as a kid. So that made me realize I became an athlete just because I loved it. So that told me, like, if I got into radio, if I got into fighting, just love it. If you love it, you can be good at it.
You'll get better eventually.
Yeah.
Because the human body adapts.
Yeah.
I remember having that conversation with my dad because when I gave up Little League, it was in the middle of the season, and my dad had just been appointed the president of the Little League chapter.
Okay.
Your dad's so awesome.
It feels like your dad was in charge of every sports organization.
He was very involved.
Okay.
He was very involved. But when I do remember through those times, whenever he'd pick me up at the skate park, I said, oh, I think that was my best day ever skating because I kept learning these little techniques. And he said, you know what? I hear you say that every single time. Almost like dismissing of it. And I said, because it's true. I'm better today than I was yesterday. And all of that fed me, like, absolutely. But to talk about the flow state, I remember the feeling of landing my first trick that I ever created. That moment when I rode away, it was just this kind of silly little trick where I had to reach through my legs, grab my board, spin it around, but no one had done it.
Yep.
And I was like halfway up the bowl when I did it. But that feeling was like the dragon that I've been chasing ever since.
And how long did that feeling stay with you?
It's still there.
Still there,
Still
yeah.
there.
Yeah, for sure. Even if I learn a trick that already has been done, but I haven't done it, I still feel like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's doing it the
Still.
other day. He did. Like in the demo.
But you're
did it.
doing it too, maybe not with skateboarding, but you just told me that you were doing some stand-up comedy, which
Yeah.
is...
Oh, it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same rules.
Do you think it's worse to eat it on stage or to eat it on a board?
No, not even close.
Which way?
When you eat it on a skateboard, it's bad. Like the surge, it depends. If I get hurt,
Yeah.
I've always, that's like one of my, I don't feel it as much as other people. Like if I hurt myself, I can shrug it off,
Sure.
especially if it's in the heat of a contest or a demo. I don't
Adrenaline's
care. I just
going,
don't care.
yeah.
But if I have to get surgery, I'm an impatient person. So if I have to like be on the couch and take pain medicine and then get off the pain medicine and then do rehab, and then they're like, oh, that's not quite right. You have to do this or you have to do that. I know that process so well that I fear it. Yeah. I hate it. And when you bomb in comedy, I'm an emotional guy. So yeah, it does hurt and I get sad for sure. But I wake up in the morning and I don't have to go to hospital.
I thought you were going to say it was worse. I thought I was going to say it was emotionally it's worse.
Nah, because it's like...
It's short term.
If I like hit hard on the ground and just knock the crap out of me, and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know which bit to grab. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I've just knocked everything off. That's bad, but it's kind of cool. Like afterwards, you know what I mean? I'll get up and be like, you know, I'm all right, And he'd be like, you're all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. It feels like I'm a warrior, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll be all right. And then I get back up and keep going. The comedy thing stings longer, but that's what I'm like when you hurt yourself, like really hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Like a year ago,
rehab
I hit my
process.
head in Utah and I got knocked out and I drove my head into my shoulder and I'm 50, man. Like I fell like 13 feet to the top of my head. And when I woke up, I was like, you know what I mean? You're all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. But I'm like, I'm not. I'm in a fog, you know, and it's going to last a while and I know it. And then because I'm 50, it's 3 months later, if I go like that, I'm like, I'm like, man, 50, this is lasting way longer, and this is like a permanent thing. And it's like, do you want to go to the gym? I can't go to the gym. I landed on my head 3 months ago. It's embarrassing. So when someone's like, you suck, I'm like, ooh, that hurts. But it's just like emotional pain. It's just not as bad as
Wow, that's a powerful statement. Emotional pain is not as bad as physical pain?
Okay, if you break my heart, that hurts.
Okay.
That one, but that.
So you're saying bombing on
it's the
stage doesn't
time.
break your heart?
It doesn't last as long.
Okay.
Like if you bomb, it's like by lunchtime the next day, I'm back.
Fair.
If you snap your MCL off, oh my goodness.
That's a long.
You know what I mean? Like just like the
it's a long
surgery, MRIs, and the rehab.
And that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's
there
an
is
emotional
emotional
toll.
attachment.
I'd rather
to that.
someone tell me I sucked every night for like 3 months than that.
But you also mentioned pain medications.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you guys had friends or maybe even had personal experiences with pain medicines with addiction or anything like that.
Yeah.
Have you seen that happen in the sport?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you, any examples come to mind?
I mean, I've been addicted to everything. I'm an addict, so I was an alcoholic and into like party drugs, coke, and all that stuff. But skateboarding. That's what skateboarding always saved me. Like as much as I would want to drink the next day, there's a contest. Like you can't drink before the contest. You can drink after it, which is not a good idea. But it always same with the painkillers. There'd be painkillers when I broke something, and then you could go back and ask for more painkillers. But if you give
You're
me
not
more
gonna be able to
painkillers,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna skate again. So that just became like, which one do you want more? And as much of an addict as I am, I always wanted to skateboard more.
Yeah, the same. Like I prioritized my skating and my skill set so much that it allowed me to not fall into that. And it was just more because I was either proud or obsessive or stubborn.
That's how I got into smoking weed, though, because the painkillers, I broke my stuff off so much when I was at a high level. It was like 3 times a year I'd go to the hospital with a broken bone, and then they give me the painkillers, and then I started to notice that the painkillers made me angry. like
Really?
temper tantrums. I threw my controller at a TV and broke the TV and the controller.
Playing Pro Skater?
My girlfriend beat me at a motocross race on the TV, and I threw the remote, and we were laughing. And then when I couldn't get back to pass her, I lost the race. And I was like, I could like threw the thing, and I was like, oh, that's pain medicine. That's not me. Mm-hmm. And then someone was like, when you smoke weed, that'll numb it a little bit. So then I just would, if it was really sore, like if I really broke it, like compound or something, I'll take the pain meds. Mm-hmm. But I would never ask for a second bottle. I would always start to try to just smoke weed. And then I get hurt. He's way better than me. And you can tell by talking to him, calculated. Like I was like, I'm just going to try it anyway because I wasn't as good. I hadn't put as much effort. It just was like, if you muscle it, you could get away with it, and you could take a shot. You'll be all right. Mm-hmm. And then when it got to the highest level, I was breaking stuff, getting knocked out, and waking up with a broken bone. It started to affect. I was like getting scared. Like when I started to be in contests, and I'd be like, you know what I really don't want to do today is wake up with a shattered hand. You know, like this is starting to freak me out. So it slowed me down on the being crazy and just going for it thing. In the end, it kind of like made me timid, I think.
Does skateboarding have any negative mental health implications? Do you ever get into dark times when you're not winning or you're injured?
Yeah, but they're not as dark as to me. I don't know about him, but they're not as dark as they would have been if I didn't skate.
Yeah. I mean, I've been utterly tortured by trying to learn certain tricks where days and days, weeks, sometimes years.
900.
That disappointment that you feel when you leave after not doing it, you do kind of get used to it, but it never goes away. No. It's never just like, nah. And there are definitely times when it means everything. It's like, how could I have not done that? How could that not have worked? And that is hard. But like he said, better than not doing it.
It's funny when skateboarders can't make something and they're really heartbroken about it. Mm-hmm. I feel like only skateboarders can understand that pain because I've had wives and girlfriends that are like, it'll be okay. And I'm like, it won't be. You know, and they're like, it's just a skateboard trick. And I'm like, it's not. It's everything, you know, and if I can't make it, I'm a failure.
But like, I had to have a deep discussion with my wife about getting back to McTwist, the trick I got hurt on, where, you know, she would like to discourage me from doing that, but we had to come to some middle ground where it's like, look, I have to do this. It doesn't mean I'm going to keep doing it going forward, but I have to get back to this and know that I'm capable of it.
Was the concern physical or mental?
Sure. Physical.
Physical. That you would hurt yourself in that way. But it wasn't that you were coming home when you weren't doing it and you were angry or sad.
No.
No. The concern is that, because she knows that, you know, I broke my leg doing that trick.
Yeah.
But my hack for the whole thing was to have her there when I did it because I knew I wouldn't get hurt in front of her.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
Because she'd be so mad at me.
Yeah. This whole injury thing, I was around, like when he got out of hospital, he was like, I want to do a podcast to talk about it. Uh-huh. So we set up in his house and she was there with this face. I know her really well too. And I love her. Like I respect her opinion of everything. And her face, she didn't say anything to me. Her face that we were there doing a podcast was like, you guys aren't talking about like trying to do that again, right? And I'm like, I didn't even do it.
She's very pragmatic. It's not like that she's a buzzkill. She
had common sense.
She's being rational.
Yeah. And I was in a state of frenzy, like, I got to get back to this. Yeah. I got to tell everyone I'm okay. That should not have been my approach. And so I should have heeded her warnings more, for sure.
Was therapy or sports psychology ever something part of your guys' arsenal?
Not in the early days. We had no support.
Really?
I mean, you have to understand, like, skateboarding was the Wild West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The tricks that we were doing, the flips and things like that, there was no training ground. There were no coaches. There was no foam pits, or safety mats.
There were pools.
There were pools. And you knocked your teeth out trying to figure this stuff out. So when those things came into play, it was like, what is all this?
Yeah.
How? We never imagined anything like this, that a kid can learn to do a 540, 720, 900, 1080, whatever, and learn it safely.
Yeah. I was jealous.
Yeah,
When
it was
all
more of a
started
jealousy
happening,
thing.
I was
Yeah.
jealous of people
Yeah.
that learnt 540s into a resi pit. I'm like, that's not fair.
But also, even the mental health aspect, like I went through really difficult times being considered the number one competitor for so many years and consistently, where it took this toll on me that it sucked all the fun out of it for me. I really was depressed. And I was expected to go back. And Rodney Mullen just did this talk. Actually, you could look it up. But he has this whole thing about there was no second, third, or fourth for us. Because
only
for us,
him and Rodney.
that was losing.
Yeah.
Because
we
of the
saw it as
expectation.
that. Like, he's not wrong.
But
We
it became
did.
that projected expectation on us, we took it to heart. So we would both be like crushed and we would be crushed if we performed well but only got second, where that should be a happy day for anybody. And it really just it was so strange because I'm living the dream, but it was a nightmare.
So what advice would you give back to yourself in that moment?
Take a step back and enjoy the skating. And don't worry about your rankings. And don't worry about it was you had to accumulate points through the series. So if you're going to miss an event, good luck trying to keep yourself in those rankings. So it was like every weekend or other weekend is this high intense pressure situation, and then on to the next one.
Yeah, it's like this idea of irrational thought that all humans do. It's called cognitive distortions, where we label ourselves things that are not really accurate. So, for example, if you constantly get first place at tournaments and then you get third, you're like, I'm a failure. But rationally speaking, that's not true.
That's
you get
not
first
true,
place.
but there was a lot of noise and there was a lot of talk that was that.
Really?
Where it was like,
I remember thinking my attitude was not up to par because I'd be happy if I got third. And I remember thinking, that's the loser's mentality. Like, if you're like him, where you, like...
But if I got third, the general discussion was he lost.
Oh, yeah.
Is that because of your abilities and what you could accomplish? Or
no,
they were being unfair?
It's not even that. It's just more that you've reached this level and this expectation.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And nothing else is acceptable in the eyes of the fans or the media or your sponsors.
So you think it was outside influence more than what you were feeling?
It was
both.
both.
The judges were unfair to him because he was so good. If he didn't beat him every contest, if anybody else in the contest did his shitty ride, they would have won. But it was because of if he didn't do some trick at the end that no one's done every contest.
Yeah, at some point I
it.
had to hide new tricks from the judges.
No way.
So that there was an element of surprise.
Because
so that
they wouldn't give it to him.
They would get boosted. But beyond all that, it was more that it was just... it was so unfortunate to be living that and being like, I don't even enjoy doing this. And the reason I ever got into this is because I love it so much. So I actually pulled away from competition like cold turkey. And
to bring back the joy.
To bring back the joy. And that was my most creative time of my life in terms of figuring out new tricks and enjoying what I was doing and allowing myself to fall and fail more. And it kind of restructured my style. But then I came back to competing with a way more cavalier attitude where it's like, I don't care what happens. And I did well and I didn't do well, but it was way more enjoyable.
Wow. So being less afraid to fail because you were chill about it allowed you to fail less.
Fun. Fail less. Yeah, it did actually. Yeah. Yeah. And be way more creative. It was like, whoa, what was that trick?
Wow.
Which made him even heavier because he'd already ruled for 2 decades, and then he's got more, and I'm like, wait, really? Come on, dude! Like,
He was just unlocking his
But
sports
the irony,
psychology.
the irony is that when I did come back to competing, that's when skating started to take a dive. So it was kind of like, wait, what happened? Where?
yeah.
Turn the lights back on. I'm good at this again.
Okay. And then I'm curious. So, like, obviously, we talked about all these injuries and the pain that you experienced, both mental and physical. What were the experiences like with the healthcare system? Like, I know you told me you would go to an urgent care and they said, we never want to see you here again.
Yeah, I did. I went to an urgent care for stitches, and I had gotten so many stitches from the same doctor because that was my default. I knew I could just swoop in, and he said, "There's no more skin left on your shin for me to pull over, so don't come back here again." But my experience, I think my experience was more that I learned to sort of have any recommendations of timelines from doctors.
Okay.
Because I knew they had to err on the side of being conservative.
Conservative, yeah.
Right. So they're like, you're going to be out for 3 months. I was like, okay, I'm going to be out for a month and a half.
He's right.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And
But then
what I
sometimes your
learned-
bones didn't heal well.
Yeah,
Well,
one time.
When I was 54, yes, that's
Fair.
what happened. But
Okay.
in the earlier days, I did always expedite those timelines because of getting what I learned kind of through my own process is getting back to it sooner and being active encouraged the healing more.
Which is true.
I
I
hope it's true.
No, it is true. So, like, we've updated our guidelines where before, if someone had a low back strain or sciatica, we would say, oh, you should rest, bed rest. But now we say, no, bed rest is not
Makes it worse,
ideal,
right.
makes it worse,
Right.
especially past like a day or two. You sprain an ankle these days, it's right away, get it moving as fast as possible. Maybe not weight bearing, but at least doing the alphabet and all
Yep.
this mobility stuff. Because we see that if you lock in without movement, you don't heal as well. Less circulation, less blood flow, less range of motion. Then it's longer to rehab. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're
When
kind of ahead of the time.
I broke my elbow in '98, and it was so stiff. And then I finally just kind of went on my own, went back to skating, even though I didn't have the mobility of it.
Yeah.
But getting that back, it finally, I'll never forget feeling that click of it straightening again because I skated.
Wow. So you broke some scar tissue or a bone spur or something that was there.
Yeah, I broke through something, but it was because I was
Broke through
being in
something.
motion.
There also used to be a lot of times where they would tell you that you're never going to skate again. That used
Really?
to happen. Yeah,
heard
my
that?
shoulder
Yeah,
come
I
out a
never got
lot, and
that
they were
one.
like, "You're never going to skate again."
Wow.
And I was like in my 20s. you
And
know?
did you say BS or were you like crying?
I cried because
Wow.
I thought he was telling the truth, and then I would go skate anyway because you can't stop. Like I would just go anyway and be like, well, I'll see what I can do with one arm, and then eventually the arm. I tried to. There was a few times where I lifted weights because my theory was if I got a little more
Stronger,
then it would hold it in better. And there were times there where it came out a lot. You know, and I was like, okay, maybe he was right because it would come out if I just went like that, it would come out. And I'm like, that's bad. And I used to put it back in. Like I started to get used to how to put it back in. And there were a few errors where, you know, that shoulder you had to watch it. But if it didn't come out for a year or two, I'd forget that I even had that injury that they told me I could never
Wow.
skate again.
Did a doctor ever tell you will never skate again?
No.
They were always optimistic for you.
Yeah, I guess I never had that sort of injury where it was like, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But also, I'm so surrounded by people that live in
Right.
with these injuries that, for instance, we were doing a show in New Jersey, super windy. It was outdoor, and the wind caught my board on my way in and flipped it, and I didn't realize it, and it made me just shoulder block into the flat from the top, and I felt like it was dislocated, but it was still there. And we're in the middle of a show, so I'm going back up the ramp, and then Dennis McCoy, who's this awesome BMX rider,
Who's
he goes,
broken everything.
He goes, oh, you separated your shoulder. What does that mean? He's like, oh, that's that you see it hanging down right here. He goes, oh yeah, I did that. Yeah, I go, what does that mean? He goes, nothing. He's like, it'll heal.
They'll tell you how long it'll take. Because
Yeah, and then he told me,
Yeah.
and so I went we were in the beginning of a 6-week tour I spent the next 4 weeks not using this arm during shows.
Wow.
And then by the end of the tour, I had my mobility and my strength back, but now my shoulder drops.
And you have some limited neck mobility, I see.
Yeah, but I just accept that.
Is that from a specific injury?
No, it's just from
Just
decades
life.
of whiplash.
Life.
We call it a chicken neck. Like if you shoot
It's like
out,
the opposite of a text neck.
it's
'Cause
the opposite.
text
Yeah,
neck's
yeah,
like
yeah.
this. It's like
Yeah.
one of these.
Yeah,
It's like a car crash, the whiplash
Flash effect, yeah.
all the time. I mean,
Yeah, but imagine hundreds of them.
I can't
over-
imagine.
but I think it's more that
So are you in pain?
This if this is the summation of all these years of skating and all the joy it's brought me and unimaginable success, that I have a stiff neck.
Yeah.
Cool.
Small
Right.
price to pay.
Yeah.
My final question is going to be about the video game. Were you involved in making the ratings for yourself in the video game?
The ratings. Oh, you mean like the stats?
I did not. That is. I haven't
Not
heard that
really,
one yet.
but they were pretty.
Because right, I feel like he biased it, right?
I
No,
think if
if you look at my stats, like my flip is
It's
low,
honest.
like
Yeah.
my ollie is
It's honest.
yeah, because it shows.
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
if you're
I got good spin, I got good airtime.
Yeah. Because he does.
Yeah.
In the real world, Eric Costin is not going to go in the air as good as Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk
Yeah, so if you're
flipping
looking at
into a
Eric
rail.
Costin's like flip stats, his are up here.
But did you have influence over it?
I actually didn't.
Oh, you didn't. Okay.
No, the
How much
Neversoft chose all those.
What about the game
initial
itself?
stats.
Like what?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
what aspects of it?
Tricks, locations.
Oh, really? Okay.
All the characters, skaters in it, music.
I think that's why it's so successful. Because I was around before it came out,
Mm-hmm.
and he was on it every day. And then if he found something, or if one of us played with him that found something, he would call them immediately and go, "Hey, there's this thing that you should change because it does this, or it'd be better if it did that."
Yeah,
I was like, man, I don't think everybody is that in on their game.
Definitely not,
Like
yeah.
he was
You're,
trying
like,
to
beta
make it
testing it.
as real for skateboarders as possible.
But also, I played video games my whole life,
Yeah,
so
that helped.
I had that history and that
Do you
experience.
still play?
Some. I mean, I'm more like I'll race my daughter in Mario Kart, stuff like
Okay.
that. I don't get deep into any other games really, besides ours when we're developing them. But you also have to understand that it was so renegade. Like home consoles had just come into play when we developed our game. There were no skate games from, I don't know, the last one had been created for Commodore 64. So there were no home skate games at all. So there was no bar that we were trying to reach in terms of a standard. And we had free reign because it hadn't been done and no one had great hopes for it. So it was great in the sense that I got to have all this input with the music and with location stuff because it was just kind of like, I don't know, we don't know, whatever it is, whatever it's cool. And then all I cared about was that a skater would see it and go, that game is legit.
Right.
And you've had some pretty fortunate timing. You released the game right when the consoles are coming into people's homes.
Yeah.
You released a VCR tape when everyone got VCRs in their home.
Oh, yeah, with the Bones
Right?
Brigade, yeah.
So, like, that's
Yeah.
some really good timing to create
Right, yeah.
a tape with your face on the cover,
And
Home
then,
video,
and
saved by
then-
home video.
right?
And then that 900 around that time wasn't a bad move
Yep.
in X
Yeah,
Games.
I mean, definitely. There's some false narrative that I was methodically planning all that. I wish that I had that much
Yeah.
foresight, but I got lucky that we were in the final stages of making the game, and they were about to submit it to the console manufacturers. Once you do that, you can't change it unless they say this has to change. And when that happened, when I did 900, I had to try to get them to include it in the game, and they're like, "We're in the last stages, but let's
We'll
get
do
it."
it, yeah.
yeah, that was a good idea.
It was.
It was a very good idea.
Thank you.
That made all of us cool.
I mean,
He was a character in one of them.
I was a hidden character, but still, I remember because all my other pro skateboarder buddies, because it was so hard. If you're in the game, you're
Sure.
at the elite of elite, and I was good, but I'm not elite. And he put me in as a hidden character, and I'm friends with a lot of people that are arguably elite who aren't in it, And then we all sat around in one of their houses while I'm the character, and everyone's like, this is bullshit. And I'm like, no, it's awesome.
This is perks.
Yeah, this makes perfect sense. You guys don't get it.
Fair.
But him doing the 900 and all that, the game, and making more skateboarders, my one was, if normal people asked me what I did for a living and I said that I was a pro skateboarder, people would say, oh, that's a job? And then when he did that, when people would ask me on the plane what I do, they'd be like, oh, wow, that's cool. Do you know Tony Hawk? Because it's a job. It's a real job. You are not faking it. You're not lying. Because I think a lot of people thought that I was making it up.
It is a real job.
Well, the culture of it when it first started wasn't that it was a job, right? It was a culture, lifestyle, street focus. So that makes sense.
But that's where all the mentality of keep going. If it hurts, you're fine. Because his peers, it's punk. Like they were scared. First time I came to America, some of the older guys, the Salba and Melba, that you probably don't know who they are, but they're legends, and they rode like big concrete things, and they were just all about, everybody. They weren't nice to Groms and stuff. They were mean to like little kids.
Yeah, they were not nurturing.
Yeah. So but if you grew up in that, like, boy, did you pay some dues. Like I remember being, 20 and skating a pool, and two of them showed up, and I'm a big guy, and I was like, oh. The Elba brothers, like, holy crap, like, please don't hurt me. Like, I remember Jay Adams saying, hey, man. I'm like, really? You're not going to be mean? Like, I was so thrilled that they were being nice to me because I expected them to be like, what's up with your You got brand new shoes on, douche.
That did exist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I showed up late, but just no.
I was there for the height of all that.
He was there doing tricks.
I got bullied.
Yeah, the most. Because he was doing something that skateboarders weren't doing.
Yeah.
It was older guys doing grinds and being badasses, drinking a beer afterwards. He's way underage, doesn't drink, and is like, I want to learn new tricks.
They called me a circus act.
Yeah. Which is because a circus act now is what skateboarding is. Progression. Mm-hmm. And he was like him and Rodney are so the same. They ride different stuff, but their angle on skateboarding saved us. Because I love pool grinds. I'm one of those guys that does big fundamentals. That's what I like. Mm-hmm. But the X Games with a bunch of big fundamentals would be pretty boring. Like the progression now, like a girl did a 720 the other day. People are just doing stuff.
So
now.
where is skateboarding going to be in 50 years?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, what's your prediction?
I think it will be on par with a lot of mainstream sports in terms of kids choosing to do it as readily as they choose to play soccer or to play baseball or basketball or whatever it is, and divide their time with it too. I think that's been the shift in the last 20 plus years, is that if you skated when we were kids, you only skated. You were defined as a skater. You were devoted to be skating, and only skaters appreciated what you did. Nowadays, you skate and
multi-sport athletes.
Multi-sport, do this and
that's healthier.
That. And that's healthier.
Skateboarding as a whole is so much more accepting now than it's ever been.
Yeah,
like everybody, all walks, all styles. It used to be a little bit more, I don't like his style, so I don't like that person.
Yeah,
and now everybody does. Like 80s tricks were not cool in 2000, but now people everybody who's cool does tricks from 1981, and people are like, that is a sick eggplant. And I remember because I took a gap. I went to like radio, and then I come back and it's like people do tricks from 1985 and the crowd goes I'm like, wait, I can do those still. Am I okay? And it's like, hell yeah, you're okay. I'm like, I am. Awesome. So it's way more accepting of everything. Well,
so then society owes you a huge thank you for making this a reality and growing it. So, and obviously thank you for both of your time and sharing your experiences. Cheers to skateboarding for the next 50 years.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is one of the most popular video games of all time. Click here to see me react to a bunch of injuries that appear in video games. And as always, stay happy and healthy.